So recently, I just bought a 4-room ground floor resale HDB flat in Singapore, and we decided to do a complete makeover, renovate the entire place. And here's the floor plan. So what we did was that we cut out the kitchen wall. We also cut out the utility room wall. We changed the false ceiling so that we have this nice, beautiful downlight. We added this nice fixture behind me. Basically, we wanted a beautiful designer home, kind of. So I started renovating in September 2021 last year, and it's May 2022 right now. And still not completed. In fact, we are almost done, but not completed. So my goal of this video is to provide perspective, especially for those of you who are renovating your place for the first time in your life. Hopefully I can provide this 80-20 rule where I share, I condense all the information in this short video, and you get like 80% of the perspective of what is it like planning for your very first DIY home renovation journey. So after watching this video, you found that you learned some tips on how you can plan better, budget better, and stretch your dollar. Do me a big favor and hit that thumbs up. Speaking of renovation jobs, this video is sponsored by Home Trust. Home Trust is an all-in-one renovation portal. You can quickly get quotes from their database of over 1,800 designers, and you can draw inspiration from their tens of thousands of pictures to build your mood board. What I really like about the platform is the amount of information I can find. It features a lot of projects and lists the works as well as the prices involved, so you can get a benchmark, an idea of what you can get with your money. It also has a massive, and I mean massive, amount of reviews, like over 2,800 reviews. And hearing other people's experience really helps in getting an idea of the designer's style, as well as finding the designers that are trustworthy and value for money, and that's especially valuable in this day and age where there are a lot of scams going around. So I highly recommend everyone searching up your own designers that you intend to engage, because you can get more information about their works. So I'm going to leave the link to their website in the description box below. So first things first, when I started to research about home renovation, DIY renovation, it meant a lot of different things online. From something as simple as cutting out the designer, so you design your, the aesthetics of the place, the theme by yourself, that's DIY, to as extreme as, cutting out the contractor, and even as far as like doing the entire renovation process completely on your own. So for me, I like to think that when you try to DIY, it doesn't mean that you DIY 100% of the thing, but the goal is really to try to maximize the value so that you can stretch your dollar as best as you can. There are some things that are just plain impractical to DIY, simply because they require license or very expensive machinery, which kind of defeats the purpose of DIYing in the first place. Things such as hacking the wall by yourself could be very dangerous, or more importantly, you can accidentally damage the structural beam of the building. So there was this incident where my wife wanted to install the toilet tiles on her own, and she knew how to do it. It was like a 1.2 meter tile, like really long tile. It's like 5 kg per tile, and our ceiling height is like 3.6 meters tall. So she wanted to stand on like a 2-meter ladder to try to fix the tiles on her own. So that was just so dangerous, and I didn't allow that. So therefore, we got a contractor to kind of do that instead. It was so expensive, but you know what? My wife's safety always comes first.
肯定过，但是也没有超过3米的。
你没有看过超过3米？
没有了，我们这多哈，你看到上面哈，顶多是2600、2500。
2000哦，对了，但是正常的啦。
对，你这个我这么大。
比那种
Having gone through the renovation process once and being very hands-on really gave a lot of learning insights for me. Like I've learned how to design, or roughly how to plan the different areas of renovation.
The art of cutting, man.
I learned how to appreciate quality workmanship. Before that, I didn't really understand what's good quality, what's bad quality to this extent. And now, whenever there's small issues like a small leak in the house, I know how to solve them. I don't actually have to call a plumber and spend an hour searching for a plumber, another hour calling them and paying $60 to $120 to get them to fix the leaking pipe.
So we over tighten now.
Yeah, over tighten nanti Sarawak go inside already.
Oh, okay.
So when I first started researching on how much does it cost to renovate a place, I thought it was going to be like 10 to 20,000, and because I'm quite frugal, maybe 25,000 worst case scenario, right? And that is actually a reasonable price. Turns out I was dead wrong. But because of major renovation work like scope creep, we actually ended up spending $50,100, and here's the breakdown of areas in which we spent on. It's crazy expensive. I never expected that I would jump from like 20K to 50 plus $1,000 because renovation can really scale up very quickly depending on the type of works involved. Because 10 to 20K is very feasible if certain major works are not done. And I'm going to just share with you some tips on how you can save, most of this cost in another video, which I'll talk about budgeting. But in this video, I'm really going to focus on the timeline because if you can squeeze the time, there's a lot of savings to be made. In fact, Home Trust made a very wonderful tutorial on the various things you really should consider carefully, whether you want to DIY or you want to get an ID or contractor to do everything for you. So because this is a very, very big topic, I'm going to break it down into two big videos. This video is all about the timeline, how do you plan the process, different stages, and really squeeze out things, certain expectations that you need when it comes to the timeline. And in another video, I'm going to talk about budgeting. How do you save money? Because if you save time, you save money. If you save money, you save money. So let's dive right into it. First thing is timeline. Timeline is super, super important because it determines when exactly you can move in. And if you plan that correctly, you can save potentially a lot of time. Because here's what happened to me. When I was planning my place, I was actually renting a place prior to this. So I needed to end my lease over the other side. So I needed to give, I think, 2 months notice. So then I had to make sure that I ended the lease on time, and the moment the lease ends, this place is ready. I move in immediately, right? So I didn't want a scenario where I was still holding onto the lease for an additional 2 months, and if I paid like $2,000 in rent, there's an additional $4,000 idling even though this place is ready. Not to mention it's a huge cash outflow because I'm holding two places, right? Because the moment I got the keys to this place, I'm starting to pay monthly, the bank loans plus renting the other place. It's crazy expensive. But what ended up happening was that because I tried to save time, I ended the lease early. I actually have not finished renovating the place, and I had to move everything into this place, and it was a huge nightmare. So I was considering whether I should get a third place, like a storage place, so move everything to a storage place, incur more costs, and then move it back into this place, or just move everything in here and try to work things out. So to be fair, because I was very hands-on in the process and I wanted to really squeeze everything super tightly, I actually only gave myself 2 months for the renovation from the start to the end to complete everything. And we were about 2 weeks too early in the process. So the first tip I would say is that you want to make sure that you buffer slightly more than slightly less, even though it's costly, because when you need to do certain renovation works and your place is just filled with garbage or your own personal items, it just gets super, super difficult and expensive to move things around. Like for example, we bought the tiles, for the toilet. It was 2,000 kg worth of tiles sitting in the living room. And if you wanted to move things away in order to paint the ceiling, right, it's just crazy, crazy hard. So the conventional wisdom of giving 3 to 6 months or as much as 9 months for renovation actually makes a lot of sense. But now let's dive a little bit deeper to understand the whole renovation process. I like to break it down to 5 phases, and this is what I conjured up of my own. It's not something where I read, it's something I experienced. And here's how it goes. The very first thing is the conceptualization phase, which is you got a house key or you're planning to buy a house soon and you're thinking, how should I design my place? So that's when you get the floor plan, you use the 3D planner, you look, Pinterest, you scroll through and get a lot of inspo and ideas for roughly how you want to design your house. The struggles I faced was that because, we were handling work, we were trying to find a place at the same time, we want to settle all the documentation, the income, the banking loans and everything. We didn't have a lot of time to spend on conceptualizing. So start early. It helps a lot to have an idea of roughly what features you want in the place. And I think with hindsight, if I can give myself a tip, it is to go room by room. So by going room by room, right, it was a lot more manageable rather than thinking the whole theme of the house, what do I want. Then that brings me to the second stage or phase of the renovation process, and that is to actually start planning and sourcing. So this is actually quite a difficult and challenging phase because you're starting to get time tight. Usually when you start planning and sourcing for contractors, you already signed a contract and you know that you're going to get the keys super soon. So in this stage, I would say prepare to have your work, affected because you're going to spend a lot of time sourcing and calling a lot of contractors. And if you are very hands-on, what you can do is you can project manage yourself. So that means that you need to be aware of what comes first, the sequence of hacking, then electricity, then plumbing, toilet, then yada yada yada. So they need to be the right sequence, and then you need to find contractors to stick in each process. So this brings me to my next point, right, in which how we can actually effectively speed up the renovation process, and what are some things that will cause you to have delays which you would probably not expect. It's fast because you can find different individual contractors to do different parts of the process. So if someone can't fit into the schedule, you can just not work with him and find someone else. And if you can find someone that's willing to do it a lot quicker at a slightly higher price, you now have that discretionary decision to decide, hey, maybe I would spend $100 to save one entire week's worth of time. So when it comes to the actual renovation process, right, I like to break it down to like 3 different phases instead of like start renovation, end of renovation, done. The first phase is, or the third part of the process, right, is the contractors kind of phase. So a lot of the major works that needs license would be like hacking down big walls, having like civil engineer to check the structural integrity, rewiring your wire, not just changing the power socket, like really wiring the electrical. You need to get an electrician to do that. Those take a lot of your time coming down to spot check, to make sure that the contractors are doing a proper job, and to make sure that the timeline is fit nicely so that everything is in order. Usually what happens is that the contractors will just leave the place very, very messy, very, very dusty, because they just want to get all these things done as quickly as possible. Usually during this process, you either don't have water or you don't have electricity at home. So once this phase is done, you move into this, what I call the move-in phase, where technically a lot of the major works are done. You can technically live in the place because you have food, you have heater, you have water, electricity. You can technically put a small fridge and get by. So during this phase is when you could potentially move the things in, start to move some of the things in, because a lot of the mess have settled down, and you can now start to focus on cleaning the place and doing like the minor works left. So things that are left in this phase would be like your window. You want to change the curtains, you want to change the solar panel, you want to install a wardrobe here, you want to install a wardrobe there, or you want to install your hob, because all the wiring has been done, but you don't have a hob, you don't have a dishwasher. That's okay. Once you can move into the place, you start to bring all your stuff in, your barang, you start to shop for a mattress, you start to buy your big fridge, your washing machine, your dryer, things of that sort. So it's a fun time, but yet that's when the renovation process as a DIY person starts to get very, very slow. And here's why, because when you project manage your own renovation process, it's super time consuming. You need to be on the ground, make sure that the pipes that they build, the wire that they build is in the right spot, the dimensions, you're always on the ground. And because of that, you're neglecting work. So because you've neglected work for like a month and a half, 2 months, 3 months, I then entered this phase, what I call the catch-up phase, where I am trying to catch up on my work. So even though I technically could move in, I can relax a little because my wallet is not so strained. I had a lot of backlog for work. I wasn't posting sufficient videos. My business was majorly affected. So then I entered what I call the catch-up phase, and that lasted for about a month, where very minimal renovation was done because I was just burning midnight oil trying to catch up on my work. If you are a busy working professional, you need to factor that in, because when you really need to spend a lot of mind share thinking about your home reno. So then afterwards, you really have this catch-up phase where you really need to just focus on your work. It could be 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month if you're like me. So that's one thing to bear in mind. And after that, because you've spent like 4.5, 5 months intensely renovating and then working non-stop, you're feeling a bit tired. So then I move into this phase, what I call the recovery phase, where I pop a champagne, tell my wife, finally our place is like 80% done. I'm so happy, So then we start to relax a little bit. We finally hung out on one of the weekends. We enjoyed a little bit, and then I move into this more stable phase, where instead of trying to rush everything finished because the home is like 80% done, we start to renovate things very slowly, because there's no rush to renovate the rest of the process, unless of course you promise a friend or a subscriber that you want to do a home tour, and which then you regret and feel guilty about it. Point is, I started to balance home renovation and work life at the same time. So then I only renovate like about 2 or 3 days a week. So one of the weekday nights and one of the weekends would be spent doing major renovation, like shopping for a new shoe rack. So if I can summarize this unique phase in the timeline, it took an additional, after I moved into the place, it took an additional 3 months for me to quote unquote complete. Even right now, we are like 95 to 99% done of our place. But we're in no rush to finish it, you know. So there are a couple of tips if you want to DIY your home reno. You can either set a strict timeline and try to finish the last mile, or you can, take your time and balance things out. Make sure, you and your wife are happy living in a new house and slowly renovate the rest of the way. So during this phase, I think a lot of the financial stress or juggling multiple places is kind of, done already, because you can technically move in and slowly complete the rest of the way. So I think a lot of people don't actually appreciate this phase. Like, you think that it's not done and then it's done, but there's actually a midpoint where it's semi-done, where you can live in it. So that's what I've noticed is missing out a lot on YouTube. Once it's done, you move on to the last phase where it's completely done, you have a beautiful home. But in actuality, once you learn how to DIY, the home is never done, it's always a work in progress. So now that we have a clear picture of the different phases, let's talk about how long renovation actually takes. So, interestingly, right, most of the time spent in renovation is actually idling, because renovation works is like super fast. I mean, not super fast, but it's fast. A lot of the major works actually is completed within a day or two tops. Like, let me share with you the number of man days that's required. Hacking, redoing the ceiling, only took, I think, 3 days. So we hacked the kitchen wall, we hacked the service yard, we added false ceiling here through the walkway this way. We got a civil engineer to come and check to make sure the structural integrity was okay, and plus the electrical wiring. That took 3 days, super fast. Doing the toilet took 2 days. So like we tear off all the previous tile, put the tile. Sorry, we didn't tear down all the. We overlay the tiles, we changed the toilet bowl, changed the basin. Everything took like 2 days. In fact, 1.5 days. Flooring was done within a day. Painting was done within half a day. And a lot of things could be done like simultaneously. But AC was done within a day. So everything, all in all, the number of man days that it took was maybe 15, max 20 days. But yet the renovation took like 3 months. So at the end of the day, whichever route you choose, home buying should be a very happy process. So discuss this carefully with your partner to make sure everyone's on the same page. If not, you're gonna have massive conflict. Make sure you have enough money, otherwise you'll be very stressed out as well. And with that said, I highly recommend you check out the comment section below, because usually videos like this will get a lot of questions and answers. And if you've gone through the renovation process yourself, please leave like a lot of phases of wisdom in the comment section below, so I can learn, we can help one another out. At the end of the day, we all just want to save money and get our dream home quicker. So with that said, now I've covered like timeline. There's this other video I highly recommend you watch, which is about the budgeting process, in which, if I were to stretch or really squeeze my wallet, I could have compressed my DIY reno to as little as $13,000. So I'm going to share with you some of the biggest expenses on my place. You can check it out in this video over here, or check out what YouTube recommends you over here, and I will see you next time. Take care everyone and stay safe. Shh.